Grounding of the secondary side of a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer is addressed by the National Electrical Code (NEC). It stipulates that the secondary must be grounded if certain conditions related to the primary side are met. The primary factor determining whether secondary grounding is necessary is the voltage to ground of the primary conductors. Specifically, if the primary voltage exceeds 150 volts to ground, the NEC mandates grounding of the secondary. In the scenario of a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer connected to a 240 volts primary, the primary voltage to ground is 240 volts. Since 240 volts exceeds the 150 volts threshold, grounding the secondary is a requirement according to the NEC. The NEC also considers the location of the transformer. If the transformer is situated in a wet or damp location, grounding of the secondary is required, irrespective of the primary voltage level. This is due to increased safety concerns associated with electrical equipment operating in environments where moisture is present. Now, regarding the high leg delta system, the crucial point to understand is that whether or not the high leg is used in the primary connection is irrelevant to the grounding requirement. The determining factor is the voltage to ground of the primary conductors. As long as the primary voltage to ground is greater than 150 volts, the secondary must be grounded, regardless of whether the high leg is part of the primary circuit. To elaborate further, a high leg delta system, also known as a wild leg or single leg delta system, is a three-phase electrical service where one phase has a higher voltage to neutral than the other two phases. Typically, in a 240 volts high leg delta system, two of the phases have 120 volts to neutral, while the third phase, the high leg, has approximately 208 volts to neutral. However, for the purpose of determining grounding requirements for the secondary of a control transformer, the NEC is concerned with the phase to ground voltage, not the phase to neutral voltage, unless the neutral is grounded, in which case they are the same. Therefore, even if the high leg is not directly used to supply the primary of the control transformer, the fact that the primary system is a 240 volts system means that the phase to ground voltage is 240 volts, thus triggering the grounding requirement for the secondary. Grounding the secondary of a control transformer serves several important purposes. Firstly, it provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source in the event of a ground fault. This allows overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, to quickly trip and energize the circuit, minimizing the risk of electrical shock or fire. Secondly, grounding helps to stabilize the voltage on the secondary side of the transformer. This reduces the likelihood of voltage fluctuations or transients that could damage sensitive electronic equipment connected to the secondary. Thirdly, grounding can reduce electrical noise and interference on the secondary side of the transformer, improving the performance of electronic equipment. It is important to note that the grounding conductor must be properly sized and installed in accordance with the NEC. The size of the grounding conductor is typically based on the size of the transformer's secondary conductors. The grounding conductor must be connected to a suitable grounding electrode, such as a ground rod, ground plate, or the building's metallic water pipe. In addition to grounding the secondary, it is also important to properly bond all metallic enclosures and equipment associated with the transformer. Bonding ensures that all metallic parts are at the same electrical potential, reducing the risk of electrical shock. The bonding conductors must also be properly sized and installed in accordance with the NEC. To summarize, when dealing with a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer connected to a 240 volts primary, grounding of the secondary is generally required by the NEC because the primary voltage to ground exceeds 150 volts. This requirement is independent of whether the high leg of a delta system is used or not. Grounding the secondary provides essential safety and performance benefits, protecting against electrical shock, stabilizing voltage, and reducing electrical noise. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local electrical codes for specific requirements and guidance on grounding and bonding electrical equipment. It is also recommended to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that all electrical work is performed safely and in accordance with applicable codes and regulations. Furthermore, understanding the relevant sections of the NEC is crucial for proper installation and safety. Specifically, Article 450 covers transformers in general, and Article 250 covers grounding and bonding. These articles provide detailed requirements for transformer installations, including grounding, bonding, overcurrent protection, and disconnecting means. Reviewing these articles will provide a comprehensive understanding of the code requirements for transformers. In practical applications, control transformers are commonly used in industrial control panels, machine tools, and HVAC systems to provide a stable and isolated 120 volts power supply for control circuits. These control circuits typically operate relays, contactors, timers, and other control devices. Proper grounding of the control transformer secondary is essential to ensure the reliable and safe operation of these control circuits. Failing to ground the secondary when required can create a hazardous situation. For example, if a fault occurs in a control circuit, such as a short circuit to ground, the absence of a grounding path can result in the metal enclosure of the control panel becoming energized. This poses a significant risk of electrical shock to anyone who comes into contact with the enclosure. Additionally, the lack of a grounding path can prevent overcurrent protection devices from tripping, potentially leading to equipment damage or fire. Therefore, it is imperative to adhere to the NEC requirements for grounding the secondary of control transformers. This includes verifying the primary voltage to ground, determining if the location is wet or damp, and properly installing the grounding conductor and bonding conductors. Remember, electrical safety is paramount. Always exercise caution when working with electrical equipment and consult with qualified professionals when needed. Ignoring grounding requirements can have serious consequences, endangering lives and property. So to reiterate, the NEC mandates grounding of the secondary of a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer under the following conditions. Firstly, if the primary voltage is greater than 150 volts to ground, as is the case with a 240 volts primary system, and secondly, if the transformer is located in a wet or damp environment. The presence or absence of the high leg in a delta system does not alter this requirement. The voltage to ground on the primary conductors is the decisive factor. Grounding the secondary is essential for safety, providing a fault current path and stabilizing voltage. It's crucial to follow the NEC guidelines and consult with qualified electricians to ensure proper installation and adherence to all applicable codes. Always prioritize safety when dealing with electrical systems. Let's delve a little deeper into the practical implications of grounding the secondary of a control transformer, focusing on specific installation considerations. When connecting the grounding conductor, it's vital to ensure a low impedance path back to the source. This typically involves connecting the grounding conductor to a grounding electrode system, such as a ground rod or the building's metallic water pipe, as mentioned earlier. The connection should be made using approved methods such as exothermic welding or listed grounding connectors. The grounding conductor should be protected from physical damage and installed in a manner that minimizes its length. It's also important to avoid creating ground loops, which can introduce unwanted noise and interference into the system. Ground loops occur when there are multiple ground paths, creating a circulating current. To prevent ground loops, it's recommended to use a single-point grounding system where all grounding conductors are connected to a common grounding point. In addition to grounding, bonding is another critical aspect of electrical safety. Bonding involves connecting all metallic enclosures and equipment to create a common electrical potential. This helps to prevent voltage differences between metallic parts, reducing the risk of electrical shock. Bonding conductors should be sized and installed in accordance with the NEC. They should be connected to all metallic enclosures, equipment, and raceways associated with the transformer and the control circuit. The bonding connection should be made using approved methods, such as listed bonding connectors. When installing control transformers in industrial environments, it's often necessary to consider the presence of harmonics. Harmonics are distorted waveforms that can be generated by nonlinear loads, such as electronic equipment and variable frequency drives. Harmonics can cause overheating of transformers, increased losses, and other problems. To mitigate the effects of harmonics, it may be necessary to use a harmonic mitigating transformer or to install harmonic filters. A harmonic mitigating transformer is designed to reduce the level of harmonics in the system. Harmonic filters are passive or active devices that shunt harmonic currents away from the transformer and other sensitive equipment. When selecting a control transformer, it's important to consider the load requirements of the control circuit. The transformer should be sized to provide sufficient power to operate all of the connected devices. It's also important to consider the inrush current of the control devices. Inrush current is the high current that flows when a device is first energized. The transformer should be able to handle the inrush current without experiencing excessive voltage drop. The NEC provides guidance on sizing transformers based on the load requirement. It's also important to consider the ambient temperature when selecting a transformer. Transformers are typically rated for a specific ambient temperature. If the transformer is installed in a hot environment, it may be necessary to derate the transformer's capacity. Derating involves reducing the transformer's rated power to account for the higher ambient temperature. Finally, it's crucial to perform regular maintenance on control transformers. This includes inspecting the transformer for signs of damage, such as cracks, leaks, or corrosion. It also includes checking the connections to ensure that they are tight and secure. The transformer should be cleaned periodically to remove dust and debris. Regular maintenance can help to extend the life of the transformer and prevent costly repairs. Let's consider some examples to further clarify the grounding requirements. Firstly, imagine a scenario where a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer is used in an industrial control panel to power relay circuits. The primary voltage is 240 volts, exceeding the 150 volts threshold. Therefore, the secondary of the control transformer must be grounded. The grounding conductor should be connected to the control panel's grounding busbar, which is then connected to the building's grounding electrode system. Secondly, consider a situation where a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer is located in a damp basement. Even if the primary voltage is not greater than 150 volts to ground, the fact that the transformer is located in a damp location requires grounding of the secondary. This is to protect against the increased risk of electrical shock in a damp environment. Thirdly, suppose a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer is connected to a three-phase delta system, and the high leg is not used. The primary voltage to ground is still 240 volts, exceeding the 150 volts threshold. Therefore, the secondary of the control transformer must be grounded, regardless of whether the high leg is used. Now, let's discuss some common misconceptions about grounding control transformers. One misconception is that grounding the secondary is not necessary if the control transformer is double insulated. While double insulation provides an extra layer of protection, it does not eliminate the need for grounding if the primary voltage exceeds 150 volts to ground or if the transformer is located in a wet or damp location. The NEC requires grounding under these conditions regardless of the transformer's insulation type. Another misconception is that grounding the secondary will cause nuisance tripping of overcurrent protection devices. This is not true if the grounding system is properly designed and installed. The grounding conductor should be sized to carry the expected fault current without causing excessive voltage drop. The overcurrent protection devices should be selected to coordinate with the grounding system, ensuring that they trip quickly in the event of a ground fault. A further misconception is that grounding the secondary will introduce noise into the control circuit. While it is possible for grounding to introduce noise, this is typically due to improper grounding practices, such as ground loops or long grounding conductors. By using a single-point grounding system and minimizing the length of the grounding conductors, noise can be minimized. In conclusion, Grounding the secondary of a 240 volts to 120 volts control transformer is a critical safety requirement that must be followed in accordance with the NEC. Grounding provides a path for fault current, stabilizes voltage, and reduces electrical noise. By understanding the NEC requirements and following proper grounding practices, you can ensure the safe and reliable operation of control circuits. Always consult with qualified electricians to ensure that all electrical work is performed safely and in accordance with applicable codes and regulations.